We live in a world that hums not with life, but with noise. Notifications, news alerts, messages, updates. Our nervous systems were designed for the rhythm of day and night, of rest and movement, of human voices and wind in the trees. But today, the rhythm is constant. It's a 24-hour pulse of pings and demands. And what I see over and over again is that this modern hum has rewired our biology. Most of us wake up already overstimulated. Our brains are flooded with dopamine before we even have taken a breath outside. We're trying to operate ancient hardware, our bodies that we have, on software that's designed for speed, not serenity. So that's what this conversation is about today. How to unplug long enough to remember what calm actually feels like. It's about how to reclaim your nervous system from the noise. So I'll tell you where this really hit home for me. A little while ago, I noticed something strange was happening in my mornings, right? The moment that I woke up, the first thing that I reached for was my phone. Before I drank any water, before I saw any sunlight, before I even really kind of consciously thought what was going on. And my body would tense up, and my shoulders would lift, and my breathing would get shallow, and I would get really tense. And I actually hadn't even read anything on my phone yet. That tiny unconscious gesture of grabbing my phone was like plugging myself into an invisible power grid of urgency. Every vibration, every new message, every red dot on the screen there told my nervous system one thing: something's wrong, something's missing, something's urgent. And I started wondering, what happens when this is the first signal that we send to our brains every day? When the body that was designed to rise with the sun now wakes up to blue light and cortisol spikes. I realized that my life and my family's lives and my clients' lives, they weren't being run by conscious choice anymore. They were being run by biochemical reaction. Here's what's actually going on beneath the surface. Every time we receive a notification, our brain releases dopamine. It's that neurotransmitter that drives reward and anticipation. Now, that tiny hit feels good, but it also keeps us in a Pavlovian loop, so to speak. We start seeking the next ping, the next update, the next small proof that we even exist. Meanwhile, the stress hormone cortisol rises each time that we feel that we have to respond. Now, cortisol was designed for survival, for moments when we needed to run, or when we needed to fight, or we needed to hide. But now it's being triggered hundreds of times a day by invisible triggers made of emails and algorithms. And because the body can't tell the difference between a missed call and a physical threat from a tiger, our vagus nerve, right, within our vagus nerve, the bridge, which is the bridge between our body and our mind, that never gets a chance to downshift. We live in what scientists call sympathetic dominance. We're constantly on alert and we're rarely at rest. So what's the result? Chronic fatigue, scattered attention, anxiety, insomnia, and that low-grade hum of restlessness that you can't quite name. We've normalized this in our society, but it's really not normal. In spiritual terms, what's happening is even more profound, in my opinion, because your nervous system is the electrical field of your soul. When it's overloaded, your intuition dims. You stop hearing the subtle inner guidance that tells you when to move, or when to rest, or when to create, or when to just simply be. You begin to forget who you are beneath the constant current. And so that's why I say the work of unplugging isn't just digital hygiene. It's spiritual remembrance. It's how we re-enter harmony with the natural intelligence that created us. When your nervous system quiets, your energy field expands and your breath deepens. And you literally become more magnetic and more coherent and more alive. It's ironic. So now here's the paradox. And it's at the heart of the impossible prompt. The very tools that overwhelm us can also help us to heal. Artificial intelligence, technology, all of it, they aren't necessarily the enemy. They're amplifiers. When they're used unconsciously, they amplify chaos. When they're used intentionally, they crystallize clarity. That's why in the impossible prompt system, we don't start by throwing technology away. We start by harnessing it and retraining your relationship with it. By using artificial intelligence as a mirror, a way to see the patterns that you can't recognize in yourself. That's where we start. Because you can't regulate what you can't see. So here's a little story about a woman who joined us a little while ago. She was in early pilot and she described this situation perfectly. She told me, I thought my problem was time management. But when I started the calibration process in the impossible prompt, she realized that her real problem was her nervous system. She was constantly multitasking, even when she was trying to do breath work and meditation, right? Her phone was the first thing that she touched in the morning and the last thing that she looked at before bed. So during the first 7 days of the protocol, we used the protocol to track and reflect her digital patterns, how often she switched tasks, when she felt most scattered, how her emotional intelligence and her emotional language shifted throughout the day. And what she saw in that data was undeniable. Her stress wasn't coming from life. It was coming from input. Once she saw that, she began to design boundaries that honored her biology, right? Within 2 weeks, her sleep improved. Her anxiety dropped. And this is my favorite part, she said she could feel her intuition again. That's what happens when you unplug enough just to remember yourself. Does that sound familiar? So when you reclaim your nervous system, you're not just calming down, you're recalibrating your frequency. Neuroscience tells us that a regulated nervous system operates in synchronized brainwaves, alpha and theta states associated with creativity and connection. Energy science tells us that in those same states, your electromagnetic field expands up to 5 times larger. You actually grow. And mystics tell us that this is the state where your soul becomes audible again. So there's 3 languages for you: science, energy, and spirit, all describing the same truth that you probably already feel. Calm is coherence. Coherence is power. So how do you begin to reclaim your nervous system from the noise? There are 3 practices I teach inside the Impossible Prompt that you could do right now. You can start them today, free of charge, right? First, create a pre-input ritual. Before you touch your phone in the morning, give your body a signal of safety. Open a window. Take 10 deep breaths. Drink water, stretch, do something that you're safe. Let your nervous system orient to light and air before it meets electricity. Second, establish micropauses throughout your day. Every 90 minutes or so, put an alarm on your phone, right? Stop for 60 seconds. No phone, no screen, just a full minute of awareness. In those 60 seconds, your vagus nerve will reset, your cortisol will drop, and your energy body will clear the static that's in it. It's like hitting a refresh button on your soul every 90 minutes or so. Third, practice digital fasting. Once a week, or every week, pick an evening or a full day where you can go completely offline. No scrolling, no streaming, no notifications, no calls, no nothing. And notice what happens when the world goes quiet. You're going to feel uncomfortable at first. I guarantee it. That's withdrawal, right? It's just like any other withdrawal process. But then a new frequency is going to emerge. Presence. You'll start to feel the subtle world again. Your body, your breath, your aliveness. These are the small steps that begin to restore your biological and spiritual coherence. And they're not punishments. You're not punishing yourself. They're invitations to remember who you're supposed to really be. Inside the Impossible Prompt, we take these things even further. Together, because I work with everyone, or we work in groups, we use this protocol not to distract you, but to help you see yourself. During the 7-day calibration at the beginning, the system learns your unique stress patterns, your language markers, your emotional rhythms, the gaps in your psyche, and it mirrors them back to you so that you can identify when your nervous system is drifting into overload, and it helps you build awareness. Then, in the next stage of the protocol, I help you to design a personalized plan. And it's what I call your digital nervous detox. And it includes daily practices, prompts, reflections, and these are the ways that we gradually rewire your internal operating system towards peace. And then once you reach that baseline of calm, you'll find that everything else in life becomes easier. Your focus returns, your sleep deepens, your creativity flows better. Your relationships soften. Because when your nervous system is coherent, every part of your life starts to harmonize. A few months ago, after a really long day, I drove outside to the cities just outside Mexico City where I live here. I didn't have an agenda. I just wanted some silence. So I left my phone in the car and I hiked up through the hills until the only sound I could hear was wind, maybe some rustling of trees. And at one point, I sat down on a rock and I felt something I hadn't felt in quite a while. It's the stillness, right? But it's buzzing like it's alive. It wasn't empty because it was full. It was full of the sound of my own energy settling, my heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the earth. And in that moment, I thought, this is what we're missing. We don't need more apps to feel alive. We need space. We need silence. We need to remember that our nervous system evolved to be in conversation with the planet, not just our devices. And so that's the truth behind unplugging to remember. You're not disconnecting from the world. That's not the case at all. You're actually reconnecting to reality. Every age in human history has had its own form of addiction, right? Power, wealth, conquest. Ours in this age is stimulation. We worship productivity and mistake motion for meaning. But the nervous system, it can't lie to you. It will always tell you when you've drifted too far from your natural rhythm. It tells you through anxiety, fatigue, burnout, through disconnection. And the question is, are you going to listen? Unplugging isn't about renouncing technology. It's about choosing consciousness over compulsion. It's about remembering that these tools were meant to serve human evolution, not replace it. And the moment that you reclaim your nervous system, you begin to live from presence instead of pressure. The moment you reclaim your nervous system, you begin to live from presence instead of pressure. So imagine waking up tomorrow without that invisible hum or that tightness in your chest. Imagine starting your day with breath instead of alerts. And imagine a nervous system that feels steady and strong and safe enough to create again, to love again, to simply be. That's not a fantasy. That's your natural state. And it's been buried under the noise in your life every day. The work of the impossible prompt is to bring you back there, to guide you through the process of remembering. First through awareness, then through regulation, and then finally through expansion into a life where your technology serves your soul. So, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. And if what I've shared today resonates with you, if you are feeling that tug inside that says, yes, I can't, this sounds like me, I can't keep living like this, then I want to invite you to take the next step. Request your private invitation to the impossible prompt. Because the impossible prompt, it isn't about escaping technology. It's about reclaiming your humanity through it. And when you quiet the noise, your nervous system and your soul will remember who you've always been. And from that place of coherence, anything and everything becomes possible again.